Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back with a strategy guide for both the FIA Manufacturers and FIA Nations race coming up on Saturday. So for the Nations, it is Group 1 at Spa, taking in 16 laps of this circuit. Your options for the tyres will be soft, medium and hard. With regards to manufacturer, it is Interlagos in Group 3, same run of tyres, soft, medium and hard, and it is a 20 lap race. So there is going to be a lot of mixture of strategies that you can run for these races. So I thought I'd do a little video just to give my hot picks, what I think are going to be the better strategies to run through the quick test that we did yesterday. So we're going to run through very quickly what I think the strategies might work out, what ones might work out from the back of the grid, from the front of the grid, try and give you some advice. It does look like the Audi R18 is the better car for the Nations race. It does suffer with a bit of hybrid issues, but the car is just better at the track. One of the reasons why it's so good at this track is because this track has a lot of flowing corners, so hybrid usage won't be kicking in through them corners anyway. It's more about handling. You don't really want the hybrid kicking in on certain corners, so you'll see that this track has quite a lot of like fast corners onto a little squirt of acceleration and then into another braking zone. So this car just about gets away with being able to be the car to use, I believe, for Spa. That is my pick for the car anyway. I would personally go with the Audi R18. There is also the Peugeot, I believe, the 908 HDI, which is obviously not a hybrid car. That might be able to compete, but the one big thing is for the higher end splits where dirty air is really going to be important. I think qualifying is going to be so vital, and this car in qualifying, with it only being 5 minutes, you're only going to get one lap in anyway, so you'll have the full charge up, which you will build up before you start the lap by running the brake with the accelerator, etc., to making sure that your hybrid is fully charged at the start of your lap. This car is going to get you the best qualifying opportunities, I believe. So let's have a little quick look at the possible tyre strategies and what I personally believe will be a good option to run during this race. So as you can see, what we've got up on the screen at the moment is a little chart of the best strategy, I believe, if you're going to start in the front three positions in your race. I personally believe that the way to run the race would be to go on your two stints of softs. Now, I was going to try out a two-stopper yesterday in a practice session, but quickly realised that the two-stopper is not going to be the way forward for this race. It looks very much like a free-stop race, and I will do a little explanation as to why it is going to be a free-stop and not a two-stop, because pit lane loss, I think, is around 6 to 7.5 seconds, somewhere in that region. And if you're starting at the front, what you want to do is obviously get out on them soft tyres, build yourself a lead up, and I think pitting at the end of lap 6 is very important, because on your first stint, them tyres will start to fade off around about the midway through lap 6 towards the start of lap 6. So you really want to just do the 6 laps on your first stint. That will then give you the opportunity, when the car's a little bit lighter, to go on your next stint of 7 laps on the softs. Now, this is the reason why you probably want to do 7 laps, is because you want to minimise the distance on the mediums at the end of the race. You only want to do 1 lap on hards. There is variations of these setups, obviously. I'm just trying to give you a base idea. So you would, technically, if you feel you're a bit aggressive on the tyres, you could go 6, 6, 3, 1. If you're really, really aggressive, you could even go 5, 5, 5, 1. But I personally think that 6, 7, 2, 1 is perfectly manageable, especially after you've done 6 laps on the soft already and got rid of some of that fuel. 7 laps on the softs is still probably faster than doing that extra lap on the mediums. That's just my personal perspective on it. Now, obviously, you can change around these strategies, but the free stop is the way to go as far as I can tell from the strategy test that I did. You might be able to do a 2-stop if you can get yourself in some clean air and maybe try and make the dirty air work for you. That is a possibility. However, I believe the free stop is the ultimate way in terms of overall race pace in this, if you're starting towards the front of the grid. So what if you do not get a very good qualifying in and you think that you're starting in the bottom few places? In my opinion, and your pace is definitely good enough to be in the top 5, I really think that what you want to do is get on them hard tyres for 1 lap at the start, because you're going to get yourself out of that dirty air. So if you're starting around P15, I would say, and your pace is good enough for much higher up the grid, what I think you'll find is a lot of people will do this, and I would recommend doing this also, is starting on the hard tyre, get them out after 1 lap, get them off the car, and then put the mediums on. You could even go for 1 lap on these mediums. This is open to your interpretation of your own ability. So, you know, go 1 or 2 laps on the medium, get rid of them, and then go softs all the way to the end. This is going to give you a nice bit of clean air then to actually use the soft tyres. The problem with this, if you start P15 and you've got people in front of you on the medium tyres and you're on the softs, you're going to waste your soft tyres. The soft tyre is the most important tyre for this race. You need to be giving yourself clean air. So what you need to be looking for during this race is gaps in traffic. You need around 6-7 seconds for a pit stop. So you need to be constantly paying attention to the track map in the top right hand corner when you're racing, and trying to give yourself the opportunity to run the softs for as long as possible without having traffic. It is sometimes a little bit of luck, but also the opportunity is there if you do pay attention to the race, the way it's going, to try and maximize your time on them soft tires. Obviously the medium and the hards, you're probably only going to be on them for 1 and 2 laps, for 1 for the hard, 2 for the mediums. So, you know, it's really important that them soft tire runs are in clean air. So try and work your strategy around getting them tyres in clean air. Now, obviously, there are going to be variations of strategy where you could start on the softs and go on to the mediums. The problem for this, I believe, is that you could end up in more traffic from some of the runners at the back that pitted early, and then they're going to be on worn soft tyres, because you're going to have to do 2 stops very close together. So if you start on softs and then go on to mediums, and then you're pitting again 2 laps later, you're going to be putting yourself back in with traffic. Now, some of them cars might be towards the end of their stints on the soft tyres. It's a very risky strategy. You might be able to make it work. You have to keep looking at that track map to see what gaps are available. But I'm just trying to give you some outcomes of what could happen here if you do them strategies. So if you obviously start on the soft, then decide I'm going to go on the mediums because the guy in front's holding me up, you're then going to pit, lose 6 or 7 seconds, not be very fast for 2 laps, and then have to pit again. So you're going to be putting yourself around 12 to 15 seconds back in the race, and you don't know whether that's going to give some of the people behind you the opportunity that might have got rid of some of the harder tyres early to be in front of you with very worn tyres, and that could be a problem. So just bear in mind that if you do that strategy, you could pay the price in terms of coming out behind someone with very worn tyres, and you might struggle even with fresher tyres due to the dirty air system on this game. So in terms of Spa, that's what it looked like. Let's have a little look at why I believe this strategy is a 3 stop over a 2 stop. So just have a little look at this. Okay, so what we've got here is a run. I just quickly jumped out, not really warmed up. I just wanted to give you an idea of the tyre wear. So we've run a run now on soft tyres, straight out the pits with tyre wear, everything on as if it would be a real race. You can see that we started with the 57s. Now these weren't particularly good laps. We actually did our fastest lap on lap 4, which if we would have warmed up probably would have been lap 2, but you can see lap 4 still doing 57.5. Lap 5, which we just completed then, was a little bit scruffy. I made quite a big error on it, knocked us up to a 58.5. But one thing that you will need to remember is when these tyres start to fade, you're going to more likely make errors. So yeah, that was a scruffy lap. Should have probably been a 57.9. As you can see, we actually went purple through sector 1. So there was potential still left in the tyres. But what you're going to start seeing on this lap 6 is the fade off. Around midway through it starts to fade off through the corners. But I think if you really concentrate, if you're really putting the effort in, you should be able to get your first 5 laps should all be in the 57s. Low 57s to start with, then it should be fading off towards a late 57 by the end of lap 5. And lap 6 probably should be a low 58, something like 58.1 if you really nail it, 58, 57.9 if you really do a good lap, but it'll start fading off on the end of lap 6. But take a look now, you can see we're running 3 to the rear bias. Now there is an option to run 4 to the rear, 5 to the rear. It will give you more hybrid usage. I have tested it, but bear in mind it's going to take a little bit more practice getting used to it, especially in some of the heavy braking zones. You have to be a bit more cautious, especially when them tyres are starting to fade off a bit. So you might need to run a little bit earlier on the brakes, etc. As we run a little bit wide there, you can see where the front left tyre is starting to fade now. You're starting to lose a lot of traction on this lap, and this is really going to show you the advantage of if you pit what I'm showing you now on lap 6 with the undercut, and the fact that the pit lane loss is only around 7 seconds, 6.5, 7 seconds, something like that. So if you keep an eye on the screen now, going through the final chicane, not a terrible lap. It was okay, a few errors in there. We could have gone 4, maybe 4 attempts, 5 attempts quicker, but we go over 58.5. So that could have been a 58.0 or 57.9. But it looks, you can tell from that that the tyres are fading, and that is where you really want to get in the pits. You can see struggling for grip now on this lap 7, and this is really going to highlight as we're going to fast forward it now to the end of the lap, and I'm just going to quickly show you what the lap time is going to be at the end of this lap. Now obviously with practice you're going to get improved with your lap times when these tyres are fading. I just wanted to give you an idea of what sort of lap times your tyres can start fading off to if you go for them 7 laps. As you can see, running a lap, it's not been a particularly amazing lap. I've just tried to keep it clean. We made a few errors on the lap, ran a little bit wide there, maybe losing the odd fraction, a tenth of a second here and there. It could have been a little bit better. But going into the final corner, we're going to go over the line. I'm not going to pick because I want to show you what sort of lap times you're going to be looking at on lap 7. I believe I could have gone a little bit faster, but have a little look. You're going to go over the line on a 59.1. So yeah, anything from a 58.5 to 59.2, 3, something like that, you're going to lose quite a bit of time. So now let's have a little look at what sort of lap time you would be getting if you pitted, in terms of your outlap, how much of an undercut you would be getting in this race. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a lap that is replicating an outlap of a run if you would have pitted on lap 6 versus what we just shown you on lap 7. So I've obviously made sure the fuel will match. We've pitted a little bit earlier so that we can do a full lap, just to show you the overall finishing lap pace, just to give you that undercut idea. You can see going through sector 1, we're actually going to go purple over the lap by quite a bit there. So yeah, you can already straight away see I think that's like nearly half a second faster than that lap 7 just through sector 1, which is just basically straight line. And then you've got this section here. Now obviously I could have probably driven this better. I just wanted to give you a rough idea in terms of what is the undercut going to be versus say a 58.8 to a 59.0 on lap 7, when then tyres are really starting to fade off. I think you really want to try and beat, if you were going to do that 7th lap, it would probably be a 58.5 to 58.9 if you were going to run it really well and if you practiced for top split, for example. But just take a look at the undercut opportunity that is available if you pit that little lap earlier. You can see so much more grip on the car. And one thing that you're going to have to take into mind with this as well is as we run a little bit wide there, get a little bit of dirty tyres and actually pick up half a second. But I decided this is only just for your benefit, just to see the undercut more so than worrying about a half second penalty. We're just doing free practice. We actually made that mistake. It would have been a bit faster there, but we're going to carry the lap on, and you're going to see that by the time we get to the finishing line, we're going to gain quite a big chunk of time. Now obviously it's going to give me the slow down penalty, but you can see where that slow down is the lap that we actually get around this point is going to show up, and it isn't a particularly great lap if I'm honest. But let's just have a little look at what sort of undercut you would achieve by doing this strategy. So we're going to go over the line, and it's a 57.0, which probably should have been half a second quicker. It wasn't a particularly great lap. Obviously it's showing a 57.4 I think, or 57.5 or whatever on the top right hand side, because it's added the half a second on. But what you need to bear in mind is that a 57.0 versus a 59.0, 2 seconds worth of undercut, that is a huge difference, especially then when they're going to be going on medium tyres, which will, for the next 2 to 3 laps, are going to be even slower. You're probably going to gain a pit stop over them by just doing that strategy, and this is why the 2-stop just will not work, in my personal opinion. Now you may be able to make it work if you're starting and you're leading the race and you hold people up with a dirty air. That is a possibility, but in my opinion, if you're starting towards the front of the grid in this race, you really do want to go soft, medium, hard. That is probably the way that I will go if I'm starting in the top few places on the grid, if I manage to get a good qualifying in. And like I say, 6, 7, 2, 1 I think is a nice rounded way to do it. I think that if you try and push 6.63, I think 6.63 will be too slow when you go on the mediums. Too many laps on the mediums. It's obviously quite a long lap, a lot of fast corners where you lose a lot of time from being on the mediums over the soft tyre. But just yet, remember, there are many ways to run this race. You can run, whether you run soft, medium, hard, or you go soft, medium, hard, soft. There's different combinations, but you need to bear in mind that some of these combinations will put you back in traffic. If you're starting towards the front, the aim is always to give yourself clean air, clean bit of traffic, keep the pace good, and stay out of the trouble. If you're starting further back, what you tend to want to do is get in them pit stops early, get them out of the way, give yourself clean air, and then push towards the end, and then hopefully have better tyres over other drivers where you might be able to overtake them. So yeah, many ways to run this race. It is pretty much a free stop, although I don't think the 2-stop will be a favourable strategy. Let's move on to the FIA manufacturer now. So for the manufacturer race, we're obviously racing at Interlagos in the Group 3 cars. I'll be driving Corvette. Now obviously your tyre strategy is going to vary depending on what car you are. I personally think cars like the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, the Audi, etc. are probably going to go for the free stop strategy in this race. Now, the thing with this race is there is a 2-stop or a free stop. It is possible to do a 2-stop strategy with more the FR cars. I would say the Porsche will be able to do a 2-stop strategy as well, obviously, because that car is one of the stronger cars on tyre wear in the game in Group 3. But yeah, it's going to be a mixture of 2 to 3 stop strategies for this race. It's very, very close between both strategies. It's very hard to work out which is better. I think that the 2-stop might just about nudge it in terms of if you are very, very good on tyre saving. At the moment, I'm struggling a bit on the game, so yeah, I might be going for the 3-stop or a 2-stop. Yeah, we're going to talk about this in depth in a little minute, but yeah, this is a tricky race because there is a tiny bit of fuel saving as well. So if you go for that 2-stop strategy, you can really do that fuel saving, avoid that extra bit of fuel at the pit stop, look after the tyres with a bit of mixture 2 and 3 during the corners, short shifting out of some of these corners, using higher gears while going through corners and stuff like that, just putting less pressure on them tyres. That will be important for the 2-stop strategy. Now obviously in this race it is going to again vary very much what strategy you go on depending on what sort of slipstream you've been getting, because when in the slipstream, 1, you can save fuel, but then 2, you can always save your tyres a little bit more, because while you're getting that slipstream you can put it into mixture 3 during the corners. In the middle sector specifically, you can really save a lot of fuel during there with the mixture change, and be very cautious all the way through there, because you'll still be getting the slipstream, and then on the straight again back into one mixture, short shift a little bit, you'll be dragged forward in the slipstream, and that can help your strategy as well. So that is a very, very important point to be taken into account when you pick your strategy for this race. Obviously again, where you qualify on the grid will determine what tyre you start on. If you're going to start in the top 3 or 4 positions, it might be a good idea to start on the softs. However, I have had the situation in the past at this track where I've qualified towards the front, other cars behind have had the slipstream when it was a little bit stronger, I have to say, with the slipstream. They started on the mediums, and the strategy didn't kind of work out. So there is still factors, especially when you've got faster drivers behind you that might be able to hold on with the medium tyres. You do need to bear that in mind, that it might not always work in your favour. But in general, the softer tyre is the tyre you will start on in this race if you start at the front of the grid. So let's have a little look of the strategies available and what I believe might help you out in the race. So first, let's take a look at the 2-stop strategy, running 9 to 10 laps on the softs, 9 to 10 laps on the mediums, and either 1 or 2 laps on the hard tyre. Now obviously if you're going to run 9 laps on the soft and then 9 laps on the medium, you'll have to do the 2 laps on the hard. But you can go 10 laps on the soft, 9 laps on the medium, 1 lap on the hard. Whatever variation of this strategy you want to do, you do it. If you want to go 9, 10, 1, so 9 laps on soft, 10 laps on medium, 1 lap on hard, I still think that it is a good idea to just run that 1 or 2 laps on the hard, so because the tyre wear is quite low for this race. So the mediums actually survive quite nicely. I have to say that I have tried this strategy. I'm not particularly fast at this track at the moment. I don't know what's going on with myself at the moment, but what I could tell you was that the mediums survived pretty okay. If you're looking after them for 9 to 10 laps, you won't really have an issue. And the softs can definitely do 10 laps. I seen FIA managed to do 10 laps on them yesterday with the Corvette. I did 9 laps. So if you might want to run 8 laps on the soft if you're really struggling with the tyres. Maybe looking after them, run 7 to 8 laps on this strategy, and then do the extra laps on the medium, and maybe do an extra few laps on the hard. That might be an option for you if you're in lower down splits. You think you can make that work for you. So maybe running like 8 laps on the soft, and then doing another 9 laps on the medium, running 3 or 4 or something like that on the hard tyres. So that is totally up to you. I'm just trying to give you a rough idea of what I think higher split drivers will run this strategy. However, there is obviously also the variations to this. If you're starting at the back of the grid, this is based on starting at the front if you're going to run the softs first. If you're starting at the back, you're probably going to run either the mediums first or the hard. Now bear in mind that you could run the mediums and just try and keep latching onto slipstreams in front of you and drag yourself forward, then go onto the hard, and then go onto the softs towards the end when the car will be a bit lighter and last a bit better on them soft tyres. That is an option, obviously. The other option is obviously to start on them hard tyres, then go onto the medium, and then go onto the softs all the way to the end, or go hard, soft, in clean air, get some good lap times in if you think that you've maybe not qualified as well as what you should do, and your pace isn't really representative. So, if you've got a lot of drivers in front of you that you think you're a lot faster than, and you've qualified, say, P13, 14, you could get that pit stop out the way fairly early off the hard tyre, put a fresh set of soft tyres on, look after your tyres, try and keep good pace, then put mediums on around lap 10 or 11, something like that. That is obviously an option that you can go with depending on the lobby you're in and the circumstances you're in and the traffic. Always bear in mind the traffic. Again, the pit lane loss I think is around 7 to 8 seconds, around that margin, depending on if you're taking fuel or what tyres you're going on. Because if you just remember, if you go into the pits on hard tyres and you come out the pits on soft tyres, your pit lane loss is actually shorter, I believe, than if you were on softs and then you put hard tyres on, because of the speed that auto drive takes you through the pit exit. So just bear that in mind with your strategy as well. You know, different pit lane times depending on what tyres you're putting on when coming out of the pits. So let's take a look at the free stop strategy and what type of options you have available for this strategy. So for the free stop strategy, if you're starting at the front of the grid, obviously, again, you're going to start your stint on the softs and probably go back onto a set of softs. But bear in mind, with this strategy, with the free stop strategy, you could lose a bit of time with people that are still doing the two-stop strategy and on very worn soft tyres. So you might not want to go on the soft tyre. This is, again, you're going to have to really look at your race, look at the map in the top right-hand corner, try and judge the distances between people. You can get a rough idea normally of what sort of distance there is, you know, with the pit lane loss being around 7 to 8 seconds, etc. You kind of can get a rough idea of the gaps that you need. It might not be precise, but again, yeah, this is my recommended 6 to 7 laps on softs for the free stopper, 6 to 7 laps again on the softs, maybe running 5 to 7 laps on the medium, probably more. If I was doing this strategy, I'd probably go at least 7 laps on both stints on the softs, because I know I can do 9 laps. So yeah, I'd probably do 7, 5, which would then just leave us 1 lap on the hard. And the other option obviously is to do 6, 6 and then run 7 laps on the medium, which it's up in the air. You know, I mean, some people might use the tyres a bit more aggressive, so they might not want to run, especially if you're running, you know, cars like the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, etc., the Audi. These cars do use a little bit more tyre wear, more so the Lamborghini, I think, and the Ferrari. They're very aggressive on them rear tyres, so you might want to go 6, 7 when the fuel's going off a bit, and then do, you know, like 5 to 6 laps on the medium and the 1 lap on the hard. That is an option for you, and I think it will give you the option to push with them MR cars. It's specifically, you know, I think the majority of MR cars you're going to see are going to go on the free stop strategy. So this is something to bear in mind for this race. If you've qualified, you know, behind some cars that are, you know, the MR cars, you pretty much can be certain that these cars are going to be free stopping their race. So you might want to bear your strategy, you know, take into account that they're on a free stop strategy, maybe go over 2-stop strategy, really look after your tyres in their slipstream, and you might be able to make a strategy work for you by knowing what strategy they're on, because I believe the MR cars will have to go on a free stop strategy apart from the Porsche. Now, the Porsche is obviously the exception to this rule because it is such a good car on tyre wear. I don't think that car will struggle with a 2-stop strategy. I think if the Corvette can do it, the Porsche can do it with no issues. Obviously, running brake bias around -3 for the Porsche. In the Lamborghini and the Ferrari, etc., you're going to probably be running -4 to -5 in the race to really look after them rear tyres. The FR cars, on the other hand, like the Corvette, I had to run the race when I was doing the 2-stop. I had to go all the way to the rear bias 4 to the rear, I think it was, to try and save the front tyres because it just was understeering so much. So again, different circumstances, different cars. You're going to have to really take account of what cars are in front of you. But again, looking at the strategy, there are different options again on where you start on the. So again, if you're not particularly qualified very well and you want to go for a very aggressive approach to the race, you know, if you've qualified right at the back and you're in an MR car, you're probably going to say, well, I'm going to have to go for a free stop strategy because I'm in an MR car anyway, say in the Lamborghini or the Ferrari. You might be able to make a 2-stop strategy work in them cars, but I think it'd be very difficult unless you're very good at tyres. But yeah, you're probably going to put the hard tyres on. If you're starting below P14, P13, I think a lot of people will put the hard tyres on. There might be some people that put the mediums on and do maybe a longer stint on the mediums and then get rid of the mediums, put the hard tyre on, and then do 2 stints on the softs, right to them really aggressive with really strong pace. You know, maybe not really worrying about fuel saving, being a bit more aggressive, pushing for lap times. That strategy could work. But, you know, there's so many variations with this free stopper that, you know, we could be here all day. You know, you could go soft, medium, hard, soft. And you can go soft, hard, medium, soft. It's just, there's so many variations that, again, you need to be bearing in mind of other traffic on the road because, again, if you're starting at the front with this strategy, or say you're starting around P4, P5, and you're going through the free stop strategy, you pit lap 6, and you say, right, I'm not going to put softs on, I'm going to go into mediums, or even the hard tyre. Say I'm going to go onto the hard tyre, get that out of the way. So you're going to go for your pit stop, you're going to lose the 7 to 8 seconds, whatever it is, and then you're going to do one lap, and you're going to go back on to, get rid of them hard tyres, and you're going to lose another 6 to 7 seconds. So there's 15 seconds gone, and that's going to put you all the way back with cars that are possibly struggling on half-worn tyres. You might have fresh soft tyres, but you're going to be behind cars with suffering tyres. It's a lot easier to overtake here with better tyres, because you've got the long straight where you get much better exit from. However, you're still going to be losing time, so you always need to bear in mind traffic with your strategy. And that is why, if you're starting at the front, you're going to probably get rid of the 2 soft stints straight away, then go on to the medium, and then go on to the hard tyre right at the end. But again, if you're not starting at the front, you're probably going to do it the reverse way. So always bear in mind different positions on the grid, different races that you're in at the moment, in terms of interpreting the traffic, are going to result in different strategies. But always try and give yourself clean air on them soft tyres, and utilize the slipstream. It's going to be very important in this race to save your tyres, look after them. It's not a high tyre ratio, but I do get the feeling they've altered something with the tyres, so that even though it's a lower tyre ratio, they seem to be wearing a bit more than they used to be. So yeah, just bear that in mind. You need to be utilizing that slipstream for fuel saving, for tire saving. Pick your strategy. You can always change your strategy on the fly for this race. If you decide that the 2-stop is not going to work, you could change it, but just make sure you don't go past that point of return where it's not going to be worth it. But I hope this quick run through of the strategies has helped you out. Obviously, I did a practice race for each of them. I've got a rough idea of what's going to work. I'm probably going to go with the free stop strategy for the manufacturers, just so you know, and obviously the free stop strategy for the nations, because that has no option, in my personal opinion, for a 2-stop. It just won't work unless you get very lucky. So yeah, it'll be a 2-stop for me for nations, 3-stop for manufacturers probably, although I might decide to try a 2-stop on the day by doing a lot more tyre saving and just seeing how it works with slipstream and stuff. So we'll see what we do when we get there. But yeah, hope this has given you a rough idea of what the tyres can do. Let me know in the comment section if this type of thing is helpful. It's something I want to do more often, especially when we've got this week gap. I can't do it every time, because when the races are very close together, it's a lot harder to do. But it's something I want to bring to the channel a little bit more. Some more advice in terms of improving your race pace, not just your qualifying pace. If you haven't already seen the track guide for the nations, that is on the channel. Check that out in my videos. Also, we've got plenty of track guides for Interlagos already on the track guide playlist. If you go into there, you should be able to find a number of different track guides for this track, whether it's Porsche, I think Ford, and possibly a Mercedes track guide as well. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Let me know in the comment section how you enjoyed this video. Hope to see you again in more live streams. Hit that like button, and I'll see you all very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.